Have you ever taken a sip of beer, gin, or a cocktail and immediately thought, why does this taste bitter? Not sour, not sweet, but that sharp, tongue-grabbing bitterness that makes some people wince and others crave another sip. Bitter alcohol is one of the most divisive tastes in the drinking world. Some people love it, some people tolerate it, and some never get past the first sip. But bitterness in alcohol isn't an accident, a mistake, or something gone wrong. In fact, it's often intentional, carefully designed, and deeply tied to human biology, chemistry, and history. So today, let's uncover why do some alcoholic drinks taste bitter? We have to look beyond the glass, into plants, survival instincts, fermentation, and even evolution itself. Let's get into it, right here, on History of Simple Things. Bitterness is one of the 5 basic tastes, along with sweet, sour, salty, and umami. Unlike sweetness, which signals energy and calories, bitterness evolved as a warning system. Many poisonous plants contain bitter compounds, so humans developed an intense sensitivity to bitter flavors as a survival mechanism. This is why bitterness often feels aggressive or unpleasant at first. Your brain is essentially asking, is this safe? Alcohol already triggers a mild warning response in the body, so when bitterness is added, the effect is amplified. Yet over time, humans learned that bitterness doesn't always mean danger. Some bitter plants had medicinal properties, aided digestion, or provided stimulation. That realization laid the groundwork for bitter alcoholic drinks. Most bitterness in alcohol comes from natural plant compounds, not the alcohol itself. These compounds include alkaloids, polyphenols, and terpenes, chemicals plants use to protect themselves from insects and animals. When these compounds are extracted into alcohol, they create bitterness. Hops in beer are a perfect example. Hops contain alpha acids, which become bitter when boiled during brewing. This bitterness balances the sweetness of malted grains. Without hops, beer would taste heavy, syrupy, and flat. The bitterness isn't just flavor, it's structure. In spirits like gin, bitterness often comes from botanicals such as juniper berries, angelica root, or citrus peels. These plants release bitter oils when steeped in alcohol, giving gin its dry, sharp edge. Fermentation itself can contribute to bitterness. When yeast consumes sugars and produces alcohol, it also creates secondary compounds. Some of these compounds, like higher alcohols and phenols, can taste bitter, especially if fermentation isn't tightly controlled. In beer, certain yeast strains intentionally produce subtle bitter or spicy notes. In wine, extended skin contact can extract tannins, which add bitterness and dryness. Even small changes in fermentation temperature, yeast choice, or timing can dramatically affect how bitter a drink tastes. This is why craft beers often taste more bitter than mass-produced ones. They're designed to highlight these complex fermentation flavors rather than hide them. One of the most misunderstood sources of bitterness in alcohol is tannins. Tannins come from grape skins, seeds, oak barrels, and even tea leaves. They don't just taste bitter, they create that dry, puckering sensation that makes your mouth feel chalky or tight. Red wines tend to have more tannins because the juice ferments with the skins longer. Oak barrels add even more tannins, which is why aged wines and spirits often taste more bitter and dry than younger ones. Whiskey, bourbon, and brandy pick up bitterness from charred oak barrels, which release tannins, lignins, and smoky compounds over time. This bitterness isn't harsh by accident. It adds depth, balance, and aging potential. In alcohol, bitterness is rarely meant to stand alone. It exists to balance sweetness and acidity. Without bitterness, many alcoholic drinks would taste cloying or dull. Beer without bitterness would resemble sugary breadwater. Cocktails without bitter elements would taste like alcoholic soda. Even sweet liqueurs rely on bitterness to keep them from becoming overwhelming. Classic cocktails like the Negroni, Old Fashioned, and Martini all use bitterness deliberately. Bitters, vermouth, and citrus peels aren't added for shock value. They sharpen flavors and prevent sweetness from dominating. Not all bitter drinks are equally bitter. The intensity depends on concentration, extraction time, and alcohol strength. Higher alcohol levels extract bitter compounds more efficiently, which is why spirits tend to taste sharper than beer or wine. Temperature also matters. Cold drinks suppress bitterness, while warm drinks emphasize it. That's why warm beer tastes more bitter than cold beer, and why chilled cocktails often seem smoother. Carbonation can amplify bitterness as well. The carbonic acid formed by bubbles slightly lowers pH, sharpening bitter sensations on the tongue. Many people don't enjoy bitter alcohol at first, but grow to love it. This happens because the brain learns to associate bitterness with pleasure, relaxation, or social experiences. Over time, your perception shifts. The same thing happens with coffee, dark chocolate, and spicy food. The bitterness doesn't change, you do. Your taste receptors remain sensitive, but your brain stops interpreting bitterness as danger. This is why experienced drinkers often seek out bitter IPAs, Amaro, or straight spirits. What once tasted harsh now tastes complex and satisfying. So why do some alcoholic drinks taste bitter? Because bitterness adds balance, depth, history, and complexity. It connects modern drinks to ancient plants, survival instincts, and cultural traditions. It challenges the palate instead of comforting it. And for many people, that challenge becomes the appeal. Thank you for watching. If you have suggestions for our next video, feel free to share them in the comments below. We'll be sure to give you an acknowledgement for your contribution. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history of simple things. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay tuned for more stories woven through the smallest details.